culinary students. So, we are going to continue our discussion about produce today, and I'm going to mix in a little bit of some fruit with some vegetables in with our discussion. And it kind of builds off of what we were talking about last week when we said if we go to a grocery store or a farmer's market or wherever else we go, how do we know we're getting a good one? Like, what should we be looking for when we go to pick out our produce? And we obviously had answers such as make sure that they're the right color, that they feel firm to the touch, they don't feel soft and mushy and squishy, they should be aromatic, they should be what we would consider the shape and size of that fruit or vegetable to be. We don't want to have ones that are incredibly misshapen because that can throw off the quality of the produce. So there were lots of things that we had said, yeah, these are things we should look for, and then these are things that we should stay away from. And one of the things that we had said then when we get produce home is that we do not want to wash produce before we store it because we know that that can increase risk of bacterial growth, mold growth, things like that, and break down the cell structure a lot quicker. But we do want to wash our produce before we actually start cooking with it and eating it. And we had said, remember, like, oh, times when we've picked up an apple and we decided, nope, we don't want that one. And then we put it back on the shelf. And then we pick up a different one and then that's the one that we want, and then considering how many other people probably do that before we do. So we know a reason for washing off our produce before we consume it and cook with it is to get rid of some of those bacteria and germs that can be human spread for sure. But then there's also those things that could be contamination from the fields or animals that these produce are in contact with, and how that's another reason why we want to wash these things off. But there's another one that we would want to consider as far as like what's considered dirty, what's considered clean. And I wanted to show you these infographics right in front of us in regard to pesticide use. So these are coming from 2019, and you can see that the dirty dozen, we have 12 produce items that are considered dirty based on how many pesticides can be found on them when we are purchasing from the grocery store, getting them out of the fields, all those kinds of situations. And then the other infographic is showing us the clean 15. So 15 produce items that are considered, yeah, low in pesticides. They're not using too much. So I wanted to share a quick article with you and let you look at the infographic while I share this information. So sit back, relax, and learn a little bit about pesticides. So, pesticides are substances used to control pests. Pests include insects, weeds, rodents, bacteria, and fungi. Fruit growers and other farmers are the largest group of pesticide users. They use pesticides to help protect crops from the damaging effects of insects and plant diseases. In recent years, a number of issues related to pesticides have become public concerns. One of these concerns is in regard to the effect pesticides may have on the environment. Environmentalists fear that soil and waterways will be contaminated by pesticides. They are also concerned that birds, fish, and other animals may be harmed when they come in contact with the pesticides. Before being approved, however, pesticides are tested to be sure they do not create any serious environmental threat. The Environmental Protection Agency also sets limits on when, where, and how much given pesticides can be used. New technology and modern farming methods are reducing the amount of pesticides being used. The latest pesticides are developed to be more effective in smaller quantities. A few ounces of today's pesticide may function as well as several pounds of pesticides used in the past. Many farmers are also using integrated pest management to help limit pesticide use. This farming method encourages natural predators such as toads, birds, and helpful insects to control pests. Each year, billions of dollars worth of crops are lost due to pest damage. Use of pesticides helps to reduce these losses and ensure an adequate food supply. However, concerned people should be comforted by the fact that pesticides are thoroughly tested for environmental safety. In addition, steps are being taken to limit pesticide use when possible without sacrificing crop yield. So that's just a little bit about what these pesticides are doing to help get product onto our shelves for us to consume. But the reason I bring up this infographic is because as a consumer, we have many choices that we need to make. Okay, and we've been talking about some of those choices over the course of this semester. And one of those choices is, what are your thoughts about pesticide? Do you want to consume foods that have used pesticides? Do you want to try to stay away from foods that have used pesticides? Because that is your consumer right to make that decision. And so the reason for these infographics then would just to be to make sure we understand that there are some produce out there that are exposed to more pesticides than others. And if that is a case and a worry to a person, then there would be times when buying organic produce where harmful pesticides are not to be used would be something you would want to consider. Now, if you're a person that you're thinking, I'm not really worried about pesticides, I get it, I understand why they're using it, it's not something that's really concerning to me, well, then obviously you could be buying regular produce, organic produce, it's whatever your choice is. But really, really, really make sure that you're washing things off well, just in case any residue would be left over by chance. Okay, so that's what we can take away from this. So take a look again at that dirty dozen, take a look at that clean 15. It just starts to get you thinking, what is all on our produce and what do we need to be thinking about as consumers?